I'm Doris.
Standing here, in the middle of this garden party, the air thick with tension and unspoken words, I'm reminded of how far I've come. The string lights sway gently in the breeze, casting a warm glow over the scene, but I can't shake the feeling of unease that settles in my chest. Just a moment ago, I watched as my mother, Helen, stood up to give her birthday toast. Her voice was smooth and confident, recounting the story of how she'd been by my grandmother's side until the very end. It was a tale she'd told so many times that it had become the truth in the eyes of everyone here. But I knew the real story, the one she'd hidden from me for 7 long years. As I look around at the guests, their faces a blur of smiles and nods, I can't help but feel a sense of isolation. They see me as the prodigal daughter, the one who abandoned her family in their time of need. Little do they know that I was the one who'd been betrayed, the one who'd been kept away from my grandmother's deathbed by a lie. It all started when I received a call from my grandmother's oldest friend, Martha. She told me that my grandmother would have wanted me at this party, and that she had something for me when the time was right. I hadn't been home in 7 years, not since the night my grandmother died. The town of Millfield had turned against me, believing the lies my family had spread about me. They thought I was a selfish woman who had taken advantage of a dying old lady and then disappeared without a trace. But I knew the truth. 7 years ago, I was a young engineer working in the city when my grandmother, Rose, fell ill. I dropped everything and rushed home to be with her. I spent 3 months living in her study, taking care of her every need. I drove her to chemo treatments, cooked her meals, and read to her from the drafting manuals she loved. She was my rock, my inspiration, and I would have done anything to make her comfortable in her final days. But on the morning she died, everything changed. My mother called me and told me to go home and rest, that she would sit with my grandmother. I trusted her, and I did as she asked. When I woke up and called the house, my mother told me that my grandmother had passed away peacefully, surrounded by family. I was devastated, but I believed her. It wasn't until Martha gave me the letter my grandmother had written for me that I learned the truth. My mother had lied to both of us, keeping us apart in my grandmother's final days. She told my grandmother that I didn't want to be there, that I was too busy to say goodbye. And she told me that my grandmother didn't want to see me, that she was protecting her from the stress of my presence. As I stand here, holding the letter in my pocket and the brass drafting compass my grandmother gave me when I was a child, I feel a sense of clarity. I know what I have to do. I can't let my mother's lies go unchallenged. I have to stand up for the truth, for my grandmother's memory. I take a deep breath and step forward, my heart pounding in my chest. The room falls silent as all eyes turn to me. I look at my mother, her face a mask of calm, and I see the fear in her eyes. She knows what's coming, and she's not ready for it. I'd like to say something, I say, my voice steady. I want to talk about my grandmother, Rose. She was a remarkable woman, a trailblazer in a world that didn't always appreciate her. She taught me the importance of hard work, of standing up for what you believe in, and of never giving up on your dreams. I pause, looking around at the faces of the guests. Some of them are nodding, their eyes filled with understanding. Others are looking at me with suspicion, as if they're waiting for me to say something wrong. 7 years ago, my grandmother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I came home to be with her, to take care of her in her final days. I spent every moment by her side, doing everything I could to make her comfortable. But on the morning she died, my mother called me and told me to go home and rest. She said she would sit with my grandmother, that everything would be okay. I look at my mother, her face pale and drawn. But it wasn't okay. When I woke up and called the house, my mother told me that my grandmother had passed away peacefully, surrounded by family. I believed her, and I grieved in silence for 7 years. But I recently learned the truth. My mother lied to both of us, keeping us apart in my grandmother's final days. The room is filled with gasps and whispers. My mother's face is a mask of shock and anger. She opens her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. Martha, my grandmother's oldest friend, was there in the final days. She saw what happened. She heard my grandmother call for me, over and over again. And she heard my mother tell her that I didn't want to be there, that I was too busy to say goodbye. I turn to Martha, who stands up and walks to the front of the room. She looks at me with kind eyes, then at my mother. "It's true," she says, her voice firm. "I was there. I heard Rose call for Doris every day. And I heard Helen tell her that Doris didn't want to come. It was a lie, and it broke my heart to see what it did to Rose." My mother's face crumples. She sinks into a chair, her hands covering her face. The room is filled with silence, the weight of the truth hanging in the air. I look at my mother, my heart filled with sadness. "I don't want to hurt you, Mom, but I can't let this lie stand. My grandmother deserves better. She deserves to be remembered for who she was, not for the story you've been telling for the past 7 years." I turn to the guests, my voice filled with passion. My grandmother was a brilliant woman, a draftsman who never got the recognition she deserved. She worked for a civil engineering firm for years, redrawing blueprints and never seeing her name on a single one. But she never let that stop her. She kept drawing, kept dreaming, and she inspired me to do the same. I take a deep breath, my eyes filled with tears. I've spent the past 6 years building my own structural engineering firm, Doris and Company. We've worked on some of the biggest projects in the city, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished. But none of it would have been possible without my grandmother's support and encouragement. I look at my mother, my voice soft. "I know you've always wanted me to be something else, to fit into a mold that I never really fit into. But I'm happy with who I am, and I'm proud of what I've achieved. And I'm not going to let you, or anyone else, tell me otherwise." I turn and walk out of the room, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the silence. I don't look back because I know that I've done the right thing. I've stood up for the truth, for my grandmother's memory, and for myself. As I drive away from the house, the compass sitting on the passenger seat beside me, I feel a sense of freedom. I'm no longer burdened by the lies and the guilt. I'm free to be myself, to follow my dreams, and to live my life on my own terms. In the weeks that followed, the town of Millfield began to see me in a different light. My mother was asked to step down from her position on the town council, and my aunt, who had been spreading the lies about me, went quiet. My sister, Emily, sent me a text message, but it was cold and distant. She still couldn't bring herself to admit the truth. But I didn't care. I had my grandmother's letter, and I had the truth. And that was enough. I continued to work on my projects, to build my firm, and to live my life. And every time I looked at the compass, I was reminded of my grandmother's love and her strength. It's been a year since that party, and I'm still learning to live with the truth. There are days when I miss my grandmother more than words can say, and there are days when I still feel the pain of the betrayal. But I'm also grateful for the lessons I've learned, for the strength I've gained, and for the people who have stood by me. I know that the road ahead won't be easy. There will be more challenges, more obstacles, and more lies. But I'm ready for them. I'm ready to face the truth, to stand up for what I believe in, and to live my life with integrity and purpose. So, if you're out there, struggling with the lies and the betrayal of others, I want you to know that you're not alone. There is hope, there is truth, and there is a way forward. Don't let the lies define you. Don't let the betrayal break you. Stand up for yourself, stand up for the truth, and never give up on your dreams.